Hello, and welcome to our video on the replace terms node. So last time we talked about replace categories, which is useful to use on string or categorical data, and it's used to replace an entire data value with another value. But what if we don't want to replace an entire data value, but only a piece of that? Well, the replace categories node won't be useful for that, but we can use the new node, the replace terms node. So I'll show you how that works. First of all, actually, let's take a look at our data. So let's look at this summary column that I have displayed right here, which is a text record. And as a simple example, suppose we have something like this, driving 65 mph. And we'd like to look at this and replace the instances of mph with the expanded miles per hour. So let's use that as a simple example here. That's our goal. We can't use replace categories because make a replacement, we'd have to replace this entire data value here stored with miles per hour. We just want to replace this substring. So that's our goal. So let's drag the replace terms node over. Let's connect that to our data set. And then under the properties here, let's select our summary column. Let's drop our source so that we'll be directly working in this column. We'll be directly mutating it. Now the options is where we are going to be setting up the way we are going to be looking for information and how we are replacing that. So the first thing we need to do is create a rule. We can create multiple rules. In this case, I just click the add button. I have a new rule here. And in this case, I really only need one rule. I'm looking for mph, and I want to replace that with miles per hour. But if I had other things I wanted to look at the same time, I can make all these replacements together in one node by having multiple rules. And I can name my rule here. I'll name that mph. I'm good to go. Now I need to define how my rule is going to work. I need to define what I'm looking for, and I need to define what I'm replacing that with, if anything. So what I'm looking for mph. By default, the replace terms node will be looking for substrings. This is my substring. And then I want to replace that with miles per hour. Okay. So at this point, my rule is done. I have what I'm looking for defined. I have what I'm replacing it with defined. Another good thing about this node is the bottom half, which is the test panel. The test panel will allow us to try out our rules on some sample text. So here I can type in some sample text that I can think of. So I can say driving 65 mph down First Street. Okay. And if I like to apply this rule to this text, I can just press the Run Test button. And on the right-hand side, I will see what that rule does when it's applied. And you'll notice in this case, it actually does nothing. mph, my rule hasn't done anything. And the reason it hasn't done anything in this case is that by default, the rule is case sensitive. So I had uppercase defined in the match, but I had lowercase defined in my data. If I want this to be non-case sensitive, I can go down to my rule options and uncheck the case sensitivity flag. If I run this again, there we go, miles per hour. Another neat feature about the test panel is I don't have to just manually type in or copy in some data. I can actually go to my data set that I have this connected to and look at the columns there. So we were interested in the summary column, so I've selected the summary column down here, and now I can browse through the data and I can apply my rule to any number of these. So for example, here we had that driving 65 mph again. So let's apply our rule to this. this is what it will look like after the fact. So miles per hour. Good. Another thing we can do is use the green triangle next button, and this will skip records until we find a record that is matched by this rule. So you see we skipped 8, went to 9, here's 55 mph, 55 miles per hour. We can skip again to 11, so we can see 70 mph, 70 miles per hour, and so on. That's a very neat feature of the replace terms node. So I've got my rule, defined it, I've defined what I'm replacing, I've tested it out on some data, and I'm good to go. At this point, I can execute my node, and under the summary column, you'll see here 65 miles per hour now. We'll see that the changes we've made are actually going to be highlighted here for us, so we can quickly see all the changes that we've applied to the data. And there we go. So the replace terms node is very useful for looking for substrings, but that's not all it can do. Let's go back. Let's look at our speed column now. So you can see we have a number of values here, and I think this should be a numerical, but we've got some issues. We've got 65 to 75, 70 slow to 50, 35 mph. So all these cases we have some string content in there, maybe we have a number followed by another number, and I would like to just pick one of these numbers, get rid of the string content, so that I can turn this into numerical later. So let's just arbitrarily pick the first number. 65 should be here, 70 should be here, 65, 65, 70, etc. So how would we do this with a substring though? What would we have to look for? Well, we'd have to look for 65 or 70 or 50 or 35 as potential substrings. And that's going to be pretty difficult because there's so many different possibilities for our speed here. And the substring that comes after it, 70 slow to 50, highway limits, 70 mph. There's so many different possibilities of substrings here that doing a substring search would be very inefficient. We have to think of all the possibilities. So instead of doing a substring search, what we're going to do is we're going to use a technique called regular expressions. So I've already created a node here that uses this technique. So let me just show you what we're going to be dealing with. So I've selected the speed column. And here, I've created a rule, and I'm not putting in a substring here. I'm putting in what's called a regular expression. And I've selected under my rule options, regular expressions. So if you're already familiar with regular expressions, then great, you'll be able to understand how to use these and what the power they bring. If you're not familiar with regular expressions, don't worry. Regular expressions are a pretty simple query syntax to learn. PolyAnalyst uses a version of Perl regex, which has a wide variety of resources online to help you get into that. Just to briefly talk about what we're doing here, what this regular expression is doing is it's first looking for a number of non-digit characters, and then we're looking at the first digit characters that we see, and then we're looking at anything else to follow. So non-digits, some digits, and then anything else. And what we've done is we use parentheses to save these digits. We're using $1 to indicate the first set of parentheses that we see. So if we had multiple sets of parentheses here, so say I had this right here, this $1 would refer to the first pair. What this is saying is it's looking for a series of maybe some non-digits. Find me definitely some digits and then anything else, and then just return the digits there. So once again, if you're familiar with regular expressions, this should be pretty clear to you. If you're not, there are online resources that should be available to help you. So here's an example. We have 70 to 80 mph. What will happen if we run this query on it? We will only return 70, getting rid of the other content. So let's take a look at some other things. 65 to 75, only 65. 70 slow to 50, only 70, and so on. Alright, I'm happy with this. So I am going to hit execute when I'm ready. And now, if we look at the speed column, we've dramatically cleaned it up. Now there's some strings in here that we didn't take a look at, and we can maybe edit our regular expression, or maybe we can add another rule, or maybe we can use the replace categories node now. But you can see how we've dramatically cleaned up our work, and this has made our life much easier. We now only have just a single number and many of these records. One more thing that I'll show you about regular expressions and the replace terms node is down here in the rules test tab. There's actually another tab called the rules library, which will be a bunch of regular expression syntax symbols, and it will define what they do. So if you're familiar with regular expressions, or you're new to it and you just kind of want to refresh your memory about what certain things do, this is a really good resource. We have a bunch of symbols here in reference material. We also have a drop down that contain some examples. So for example, if you're looking for zip codes or IP addresses, or if you're looking for email addresses, you don't have to worry about creating your own version of this from scratch. We have some pre-built regular expressions for you that you can all you have to do is find these and double click them to add them. You can customize them if you want, define your replace rule, but a lot of this work is done for you. So make good use of this resource. Okay, so let's replace terms. We've seen how we can use replace terms to target a subset or substring of a categorical or text column. We can use substrings to directly perform that search, or we can use something a little bit more advanced like regular expressions for that query. So I hope you learned something today, and stay tuned next time. We will talk about extract terms. Thank you very much.